MicroGainz continues to offer you solutions to add weight to your barbell, dumbbells, and weightlifting machines in small increments. No more 10-pound jumps. You know MicroGainz offers fractional plates for dumbbells and barbells. They also offer loadable dumbbell handles, 5 and 10-pound Olympic plates, micro plates in pounds or kilograms, and a deadlift jack. They also now offer a gym pin to micro-load your lat pull-down or other machine exercises. Pretty cool. Go to microgainz.com to get the equipment you need to get more PRs. That's MicroGainz with a Z. Use code LOGIC at checkout to get 10% off. That's microgainz.com. Your press will thank you.
You're listening to Barbell Logic, brought to you by Barbell Logic Online Coaching, where each week we take a systematic walk through strength training and the refining power of voluntary hardship. You're listening to the Barbell Logic podcast. This is the business series. I'm here with my good friend Mike from MicroGainz. Mike's been here before. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We just got back from the BLOC Party, where you were a sponsor and guest at the BLOC Party. You got to bring you and your beautiful wife and lots of your products and fun new stuff to test out. And so had a blast having you in Springfield, Missouri and hanging out in my hometown. That was super fun a couple weekends ago.
Yeah, I had a great time. It was really unique. It was fun. It was worth the drive down and to meet everybody in person. That was really cool.
Yeah, when I heard that you were driving, at first I was like, whoa, that is a long drive. But then I started thinking, now, wait a minute, the guy sells weights and there's not really a great way to fly with that. That gets real expensive real quick. So it made sense. And the drive is not, it's like beautiful country driving. You get to kind of drive through did you drive through the Smoky Mountains a little bit?
A little bit, yeah. It was like 15, 16 hours.
Oof. That's a long drive.
So, but like you said, it was nice. I was able to bring my truck. So I was able to bring a bunch of different products to show. If I was going on a plane, I'd have to put them in a check bag or something like that. Only a few samples.
Yeah.
So we thought it actually would be better this way.
You are also sponsoring the business series. And we've had you on the podcast several times to talk really about your business, MicroGainz. And we want to always promote MicroGainz. We're super big fans of, obviously, of you and your product and your company and other companies like Dominion who have been with us since the beginning. But at this point, you've been pretty active as a small business owner and growing for years now. And I really want to just have a conversation with you about letting you sort of give back to others that are listening to this podcast series who are trying to start their own business or in the process of trying to get something launched, and walk through what that was like for you and sort of get some wisdom out of some of the life experiences that you've gained. And so I think that'd be great. It's been cool because up until this point, we've been able to sort of interview you about your story. And now I want for you to be able to give back to our listeners a little bit and tell them what you've learned. And so probably a good place to start. And so certainly you've been on the podcast several times. You can always go back and listen to the original interview that we had with you where you really kind of tell your story. But will you give our listeners who maybe aren't familiar, just as a refresher, how did you start MicroGainz? Like, how did you decide that this was something that you were going to do?
So I was working on a workout program, a linear progression, doing 3 sets of 5, squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press. And eventually, after doing that for months, probably a couple of years, actually, I started to hit plateaus in the bench and the overhead press, where going up by 5 pounds every time became really challenging. So I thought, I did the things you could do. I deloaded, I went back up. I was trying to eat more food. You consider changing the reps or maybe the workout, but I just hit a plateau that I could not overcome. And I thought, there's got to be smaller plates than these 2.5s that I have, so I can go by a smaller jump than 5 pounds. I went online. This was back in 2016, so almost 5 years ago now, and searched around Amazon just to see what was available. And it was pretty limited. Most stuff was made overseas, and I thought it was kind of expensive. And I thought, you know what, I can probably make these myself, just for me, a set for me. And whenever I got the sizes, so I thought, okay, I can do the 1/4 pound, the 1/2 pound, the 3/4 pound, and the 1 pound set. I went to a local laser cutter in my area and had them cut out, I think 25 of each size originally of the first 4 sizes. We got back these stamp like steel weights that were cut out. They weren't coated or anything like that. And I thought, all right, I'm going to make this like old school, like barbell, I'm going to paint them black just to kind of blend in with the gym equipment that's already out there. So I actually hung this big piece of plywood inside my shed outside and screwed a bunch of screws into it so I could hang the plates on it so I could spray paint them. I had a high velocity, low pressure air gun or spray paint gun, and then got some black paint, spray painted them black, flipped them over, spray painted them black, waited for them to dry, and then bought some stickers that I could put little MicroGainz logo on and the weight. And then I got a set for myself and I started to sell them. So originally that was only, I think, 8 sets or something like that.
Sure.
And then I started selling them on eBay in 2017, February. And I remember we sold the very first set. Actually, someone bought 2 sets. It was my very first sale ever, a day after I put it on eBay. And I think we ended up selling 2 or 3 sets the whole month. So it like got lucky.
Wow.
Sold them the second day. And I was like, hey, this really works. Immediately you got that instant validation. And then we were kind of off to the races after that. So it was just, it came from a need. And that's where most businesses come from, whether or not you're a product, service. It comes from your own personal need. And then you kind of want to think that, oh yeah, I think a lot of other people could benefit from this. And one of the other things was like, obviously I wanted to try to keep the price affordable for it, but I also wanted to make them in the United States. A high percentage of weightlifting equipment is made overseas.
Sure.
A very high percentage. And because of costs and things like that. But I thought I could probably make these here and, provide like a great service and a high quality product to customers.
Sure.
And as time went, we stopped spray painting them in my shed. We started to get them powder coated, and then we started to get bigger orders. We added a 1.25 pound plate to that. So then I had those micro plates, and that we ran for that for, I think, all of 2017 was just those micro plates. And I think we added kilogram plates. I don't know if it was that year or the very beginning of 2018. Those were just the original sets, laser cut steel, black powder coating, and we used stickers for a long time because just getting a logo etched or printed on there, extremely expensive.
Yeah, sure.
And we did everything black too, because like Henry Ford said, you can have any color you want as long as it's black.
That's right.
And for us, it was just economical because doing all the multicolors was just more expensive. So we thought we wanted to save the most money for the customer, provide like this high quality product. To this day, everything we still sell is pretty much black, actually.
Yeah. So you're in Pennsylvania.
That's right.
You've always used the same metal fabricator, the same shop. Have you changed over the years who is sort of laser cutting those out, or?
I have the original guy actually was like a plasma cutter. Turns out when you cut with plasma, it's not as accurate. So I couldn't get the weight exact. Laser is actually more accurate. So I got the weight within plus or minus 0.02 pounds.
Right.
Like steel laser cut, pretty accurate. And then that was the place near my house. And I got actually a place that's been doing it now for 4 years in Lancaster, PA.
Okay. And do they also powder coat for you? Or do you have to take them and have them powder coated somewhere else?
So they have a partnership with a company that powder coats. As soon as it's done, laser cut, they send it right to powder, and then they send it back to me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I get everything completely done now.
And then how do you receive them? I think I've seen them. It's like in a big barrel or something, or like, how does it show up at your shop, at your place?
They actually build these palletized crates is the best way to describe it. They put them in boxes in sleeves so they don't get dinged up.
Right.
Something we've worked on over time because originally we were getting boxes full of plates that were dinging off of each other and scratching. So they actually put them in sleeves, kind of shrink wrap them in the box so they don't move. And then there's actually like a wooden crate built around the plate so they don't like fall over in a truck.
Oh, that's cool.
That's how I received all the laser cut stuff. And that is currently, that's like my 2.5, 5, and 10 pound plates and the dumbbell plates.
Yeah.
My micro plates are actually, we changed the process in 2018 to a different process. The micro plates are actually made from a different type of material.
Gotcha. I love that. First, it wasn't that you just recognized a problem or a roadblock sort of in an industry and tried to solve it. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's that you yourself actually had the problem. And I think often good businesses come out of that where you go, boy, I wish I could solve this for me. And then probably my guess is you went to the guy that would cut it out with plasma and he's like, well, it's this much to do one set, or it's this much to do, you can buy a whole sheet and I can make this many sets. And you were probably like, yeah, let's just go ahead and make the 8 full sets, cut out 25 of these or whatever it was for significantly less price per piece. And now you're going, well, I get to keep one set for myself and I can turn around and see if I can flip these other ones. Is that sort of the way it worked? Where, I mean, I've got to imagine like cutting out a single set of those things, we're going to be pretty prohibitively expensive. And all of a sudden, if you're like, well, if you buy the whole sheet, we can use as much of this as possible, then yes, it's got to be cheaper.
Exactly. It's always a quantity game. You have to buy more to get the discounts. If you buy one set, it would be, I don't even know, $100 for an 8-plate set or something like that.
Right.
Not only is it the metal you're buying, but it's the time spent, like the worker, the time spent laying the sheet out, the time spent programming the laser, and then cutting out one set and then pulling that mostly unused sheet of steel back off, doing another order.
Right.
So, as time has gone on, we went from ordering 25 of each plate to 100 of each plate to 500 of each plate to 1,000 of each plate, that kind of a thing. That takes time as well, which is, for me, I worked full time during all of this pretty much until last year as a grocery store manager. So this was always on the side. So I was able to take my profits that I made and reinvest it back in the business, where we didn't take any money out of MicroGainz except to use on MicroGainz expenses for almost 4 years.
Yeah.
And that's really important if you want to build like a successful business. Like you said in the beginning, I don't know if I was looking to build a business. Like you said, I got my set for me, like perfect. And then I think, like you said, I can probably flip them, put them on eBay, sold them. So now it's like, well, maybe I can sell a couple more. And you're only talking about $100, $200 in sales in the first month. Nothing extraordinarily crazy. And to think of where it is now or what it's become. But yeah, in the beginning, the idea probably wasn't even to build like a big business and quit my job and all that stuff. It was just so I could weight train and break my plateaus.
Yeah. So that leads me to another really important point that I see all the time, especially in the world of social media. It seems like everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, right? And so like that's sort of this, I've talked about it on the podcast before. One of my favorite business books, especially in the beginning, is E-Myth, so which stands for the Entrepreneurial Myth. And that general concept of the title of the book is that if somebody asks you what you do, right? For example, if you're like, what do you do? And you're like, I work at a grocery store. They're like, okay. But if they're like, what do you do? And you're like, I'm an entrepreneur. They're like, whoa, cool. What do you do? Right?
Much sexier.
The reality is that people are often making way more money at the grocery store than they are as an entrepreneur. Like there's something that is sort of like, it's got some mystique to it, especially in the Western world, about being an entrepreneur. And yet a lot of entrepreneurs are broke, or they're just full of what they think are good ideas, but they actually don't put anything to work. And I think a really important concept, something that you did, something that I did when I started Strong Gym. I was a school teacher and I was finishing my master's to be a high school principal. God, I wish I had never been a teacher. But that said, I still had a regular job. I was paying the bills and paying the mortgage and taking care of my family with my day job as a teacher. You were managing a grocery store. And I had a very similar sort of story. This was 2008. So this is before CrossFit. I mean, CrossFit was literally in its infancy in Santa Cruz, California. And that was the only place it was in 2008, basically. And I needed a place to train strongman. I mean, now you can go almost any town in America has strongman equipment, but in 2008, there was none. So I thought, well, I need a place to train strongman. And so I opened a gym and the gym started to grow. And I had same thing, no intention to have that turn into any sort of business that would make money or certainly be a career for me. I just thought like, well, I'll be a high school principal and I'll make $100,000 a year as a high school principal and then kind of do this gym thing on the side and train, and I'll have a place to train. And we don't have to do this out of my 2-car garage anymore. So my wife can park her car in the garage and she doesn't have to slip on the ice while she's pregnant with her kiddo. It was that kind of stuff. And then what happens is because, and this is, I don't know if I've ever talked about Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, who's a very popular entrepreneur on social media, very polarizing. For a long time, I would see Gary V's stuff and I was sort of turned off by it because I thought he felt very sort of like rah-rah cheerleader-ish sort of thing. And there's a little bit of that. But if you really kind of look at what he's saying, I agree with a lot of this stuff. And he talks a lot about working that second shift. And I think that's one of the things that most good, successful entrepreneurs, business owners, whether you even consider yourself an entrepreneur, business owners, really have to start doing. You have a job that supports your family. Like at no point did I ever quit my job as a school teacher before the gym could support my family. You didn't quit your job as a manager of a grocery store before MicroGainz could support your family.
Right. That's right.
For me, there was a responsibility there to provide. And I was going to provide, and I've watched you do the same thing, which means that while I would have loved to have quit my job, my day job much earlier, and I'm sure you would have too, it was just, we weren't 22-year-old kids. And by the way, if you're a 22-year-old kid, do it, man. Live on $8,000 a year and eat brown beans out of a can. But like when you're married and have kids, you've got a responsibility to provide for your family. And so you go, okay, we're going to work a second shift. Shift 1 is the day job that's going to pay the bills. And shift 2 is the thing that we love and have passion in. And it's been really cool to watch your progression there, to be able to watch the business grow and then get to the point where you got to step away and you're like, I don't have to manage the grocery store anymore. That's really super cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. By the way, I'm a huge fan of Gary Vaynerchuk. I think I found him a couple of years ago as well.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing you did, actually. The beginning couple videos were like, this is too much.
Yeah.
But eventually you understand the message. And we're through a prolific time of like, I'll call it fake entrepreneurs,
yep,
where anybody can put entrepreneur in their profile on Instagram and say, I'm an entrepreneur of what? I mean, it's just because it's so cool and popular. People don't understand how difficult it is. And I'm sure you understand this, Matt, obviously building your own business. It is extremely difficult. There are ups and downs. There are peaks and valleys. The valleys are low.
That's right.
The peaks are great as well. There's a difference between running a business and running a successful business or being a successful entrepreneur. And you can validate that based on how much you'd like to earn and what you'd like to do. It doesn't have to be $1 million business or $1 billion business.
Sure.
It has to be something that maybe you're doing full time that you enjoy to do and you're making enough of a living and you're happy. The happiness is really the key there. But there's just so many people that are pretending and, showing up, taking pictures with a Mercedes-Benz because they saw it on the side of the street, acting like it's theirs.
Like it's theirs.
Or something like that.
Yep.
It glorifies it, but people don't understand how challenging and difficult it can be. There's a high percentage of businesses that fail in the first 5 years and 90% or something like that.
2 years. I think it's 90% at 2 years and 95% at 5 years.
That's a lot working against you to run a successful business.
Right.
So there's no way all these people on Instagram are running all these successful businesses.
That's right.
It's just not cool to talk about. So whenever you actually build one, now when people ask me, what do you do for a living? And I say, I'm a business owner or entrepreneur. And then, I run a weightlifting equipment company. And then it starts to kind of back end of that versus like, I'm an influencer.
Right.
Well, what does that even mean?
Right.
But yeah, I don't think it can be understated how challenging it can be. And then you got to get through that. And that's the challenges of being an entrepreneur. And if you really like what you do, like I worked in grocery stores for 15 years of my life. That's like almost half my life. And it just wasn't great anymore. The grind, the 50-hour weeks, the working every holiday and every single weekend. I was like, I can probably do something else. And I'll be honest, I was never super entrepreneurial. My wife is actually very creative, very entrepreneurial. And I was more like, I'm going to be a store manager and a district manager and a CEO and I'm in my 50s or something like that. And then it just came like, I actually can get a way out, do something I like, work when I want to work, go to cool BLOC Party events because I don't have to work. Right. And that was kind of like the dream. And, after several years, we realized that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so you've got the fake entrepreneur, which Instagram and TikTok and social media is full of. Man, I don't think that in general that's our audience that's listening. I hope it's not. If it is, change your ways or go find another podcast.
Yes.
What's crazy though is like I literally think about you screwing screws into a piece of plywood and hanging these micro plates on these screws and then spray painting them. That's an entrepreneur. That's a business owner, right? People don't want to do that, right? Like, God, don't you wish, I bet you haven't, maybe you did. Did you take a picture of it? Like, how awesome would it be to have a picture of that original piece of plywood with all the micro plates hanging on the screws? And I assume you didn't record that because you had no idea that it was going to turn into what it is.
I actually have a couple pictures. I don't think I have any videos, but I have some pictures of the steel plates hanging in my shed.
Dude,
that'll go in the MicroGainz museum.
You should print that out on like a canvas and hang that. I'm serious, and hang it in your office because like that's it, right? Like I have a God, I've been so emotional lately. I'm sorry. I have a picture of Strong Gym at the front door of Strong Gym in the shittiest industrial building you've ever seen in your life. That while I was going to the airport 2 weeks ago to pick up people for the BLOC Party, running this, business with 1,300 clients and 85 staff members and multi-million-dollar business. And on the way to the airport, I had to drive by the old shitty industrial building that was the original Strong Gym that still had the sticker on the big garage door that said Strong Gym has been peeled off, but you can still see where it said Strong. And I just lost it because I thought like that was it, right? Like that was the get up at 4 a.m. and go coach a couple clients before I went and taught junior high school, and then coach a couple clients in the afternoons or evenings. And then on Wednesday nights all night, go do my master's classes to be high school principal. And like, I wouldn't trade that stuff for the world. I wouldn't trade it for the world. And that's the stuff. Like I can remember, like one of the reasons it choked me up is I remember hanging that sticker on the wall, on the door. I remember buying the decal, at the local sticker place for $40. And that was the signage, was the $40 sticker on the garage door. And so I have a picture of that. Like, it's important to me to be able to go back and go like, this is where this stuff started, man. Same thing. It's like, I feel like that piece of plywood represents that for you guys. There was a day where the entirety of MicroGainz business was hanging on a 4x8 sheet of plywood. Like, that's really effing cool.
Yeah, that's it. It's crazy to think of where you've come from, like so far. I mean, I just like now that you're mentioning the plywood a bunch, I was just thinking like we were hanging it, like, you had to do 2 coats of paint And then we had to like wait hours and like it's all fumey inside of the shed.
Yeah.
Flip over the plate, do the other side, realize that I was having a tough time hitting the edges of the plates.
Right.
And then I'm like, and then I got to take a clear coat because then the black will chip off.
Yep.
So now I'm in it for 2 coats. We're mixing up paint outside.
Oh, yeah.
I had to buy an air compressor. We're spraying those things.
You're high as balls. You're trying to not to throw up at
like
night.
taking steps outside of the shed to breathe and then go back in, wait all night for it to dry. And, we're carefully placing it into the house. Meanwhile, if a plate dings off each other, it scratches the coating right off. And I'm like, people are going to think I'm fake when they get this. They're going to be like, this is low quality.
And yet, that's the picture that should go on Instagram with the hashtag entrepreneur life.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is.
Right.
It's not the, hey, I just walked by a Ferrari that's parked downtown in the gentrified area of my downtown city, and I'm going to take a picture of it and pretend like this is my thing. No. That's how it starts. You put up a 4x8 sheet of plywood and you screw up the painting trying to paint your micro plates 8 different times until you get it right.
That's right.
And then you put them on eBay of all places, right? Like, I'm sure eBay's still around. Great deal for PayPal, by the way, selling to eBay at the time. So PayPal is now worth about 10 times. Matter of fact, most of eBay's income now comes from PayPal that they purchased. But, you put it on eBay. Like, how insane is that?
Yeah.
And so if you're not ready as a business owner, if you're not ready to put in the work, like really put in the work, like really, really put in the work. And I'm not talking about social media. I'm not talking about Instagram. Both of us built a business way before we had any following on social media.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The world tells you to do it the other way around today. And I'm telling you, that's backwards. You don't make yourself an influencer first and then try to monetize the... And I'm not saying that doesn't ever work. There are people who have done it, but man, to me, it's dangerous. It's fleeting. It's cult of personality. Something happens to you, the business is over, right? Like one of the things that I hope that people have noticed is that I continue to appear less and less and less on Barbell Logic stuff because it's not about me. It's not about Matt Reynolds. It's about Barbell Logic, right? Same thing with you. Like it's not about Mike. It's about MicroGainz. It's about the quality of the product. It's about the American made. It's the culture and the values that you set in the business, which have to be separate from the personality. Like I would assume there's a day coming, it'd be great if you had 10 or 12 people working for you and they're helping to produce these micro plates and you get to just run the business and enjoy the business. And then at some point just own the business and not have to run the business and just cash checks from the business. Like hopefully, that would be great to be able to get to that spot. But it all starts with the guy that puts 25 screws in a 4x8 sheet of plywood and starts to paint microplates. I mean, that's the key.
It is. It's the grind, like you were saying. That is so important.
Yeah.
Every night of like working all day, coming home, having dinner, putting the kids to bed, and then working from 9 to midnight every day, or waking up at 5 a.m. to make sure I could print off labels for orders for my wife in the morning so she could pack stuff so I could run to work and still do it.
That's right.
And the grind is real, and that turns people off. Maybe you're excited for 3 months or 6 months, but to be excited for 4 straight years, to see it through, so to speak, that's important and it's challenging, but it's super rewarding.
Yeah, that's another one, right? The famous hashtag on Instagram, the rise and grind. And it's like what people are bragging about is that, I got up early and or I worked hard today. But the grind isn't about working hard today. The grind is about working hard every day.
It is.
7 days a week, 365 for 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 or 20 years. And so if you're not wired to do that, if you don't have that work ethic capacity, then this is not going to work if you want to, whether you're listening to this and you're trying to start your own coaching business or a product business or technology business, the thing that doesn't change is that if you're going to work for yourself and it's going to be successful, you better learn how to work really, really hard. Right now, you got to work smart. Yes, work smart. You've got to be able to get stuff done. You've got to be able to focus and actually knock stuff off of lists, but you've got to be able to work hard. So I think that's a huge piece. And then the other one that you kind of started to allude to, that there are people who are going to look at different sized businesses. Well, I mean, look, I love growing a big business, but I don't want Amazon. That sounds terrible, right? And you might look at Barbell Logic and be like, dude, I don't want to, like, you've seen just enough behind the curtain now of the amount of work that we have to do that maybe you want that. And maybe you're like, I don't know, man, I think I draw the line before I get there, right? And that's okay. Like how big it is actually doesn't matter, regardless of how big it is. The stress swings that you go through, you talked about like the peaks, they're better than any peak I ever had as a teacher.
I would agree with that.
And the valleys are so much worse.
Devastating. So hard.
Torment.
It's bad.
Like literal torment, right? And if your personality is not wired to be able to handle that, you can't do this either, right? There is nothing wrong. And I want to be really clear. I hope I say this several times on this small business series. There is nothing wrong with working a 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, 40-hour week job for somebody else. Living for the weekend, watch the NFL football game on a Sunday, cook the steak, have a beer with your buddies. Like, dude, there is nothing wrong with that at all. But like, by the way, if you're listening to this and that sounds like torment, and that's torment to me, I can't do that. I knew I wasn't going to be a public school teacher for a couple reasons. One is there was zero competition in the public school system and there was no way to like advance. And then two, I thought to myself, if I were in a corporation like you were in, where you could actually advance, I started thinking to myself, that sounds terrible too. I don't want to play the politics game and try to climb a ladder. I'm still working for somebody else. I'm working for the man, right? And so it wasn't about, I didn't have problems with authority. You know, it's like Hambrick always wanted to have complete and utter freedom. Hambrick worked for himself because he didn't want to have to answer to anybody else. And that was his why. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's like, for some people who are going to be listening, they're like, yes, that's me. I don't want to have a boss. I don't want to work for somebody else. Like, you know, that was me. For me, I didn't want to be on the rat race of trying to compete and play the politics of trying to climb the ladder. And I certainly, while I actually love to teach kids, I enjoyed teaching. I still enjoy teaching. I enjoy going to seminars and lecturing and teaching and coaching, very similar sort of thing. There was no ability to advance in a public school system. So for me, by the way, I'm not knocking that either. I'm thankful for the teachers who provide great education to our kiddos. I'm not knocking, but for me, it was like, those things were torment.
After shoes, there is no more important piece of equipment than your belt, and no other company provides the service, quality, and prices that Dominion gives you. Whether you're looking for a 3 or 4-inch lever or prong, straps, or their newest offering, an all-leather dip belt, this is the place to get the highest quality fast. Don't wait months to get your belt. They have your belt in stock now, ready to help you crush more PRs. And you're supporting a small American business when you order. Go to DominionStrengthTraining.com and use code LOGIC to get 10% off. That's DominionStrengthTraining.com to get your new belt.
So what was it for you as you, like you said, like, I don't think you hated working at the grocery stores, and you worked at a pretty good sized chain that you had an opportunity to advance. What was it in the end that you were just like, I can't do this another 25 years?
I think one for sure was the promotion going up the ladder of like, maybe for me, I was like, this is going to take longer than I thought. You know, I was an assistant manager, wanted to be a store manager, thinking I'll be a district manager someday. And it's like the guys that are in these positions have locked them in for 10 years, 15 years. I'm like, how long is it going to take? How long can I be here and be stagnant in my growth? Like, I always wanted to grow. I have like a growth mindset, obviously, because I built up this company. You can't do it without a growth mindset. But at least in retail, it's a very fixed mindset. You work with a lot of, unfortunately, negative people. I don't think a lot of people want to be there. And for me, it was like, I can't do this forever. I want to be able to get out of my job what I put into it. And like, you know, and a lot of times you're only putting in 50% at your job or 60 or 80 because you don't like it. You don't want to be there. I was tired of working the holidays. I was tired of working 6-day weeks. I was tired of working for inventory, missing family functions, missing events for my kids because I had to be there. You know, you have to provide.
Well, think about it in a grocery store. So like Thanksgiving weekend.
Oh man.
Probably busiest weekend of the year.
Probably.
Christmas weekend, right? 4th of July.
Very busy.
Memorial Day, Labor Day. All those times when everybody else gets to spend time with their family, for those of us who have all gone to the grocery store and been like, I need to pick up some 2 bags of ice and a case of beer or some chips or hot dogs or whatever, you're like, oh, you can't even park in the parking lot.
Yeah, it's...
Well, like, all the people that work there are working there. All the people that work there are working there. I could see how that would be a tremendous drag and a hurry for somebody that does that long term.
After 15 years of working every Christmas Eve, you have Christmas Day off, just so happens because it's closed. And then you're back in the 26th, where like a lot of people are taking the whole week off.
That's right.
With family. And you're right back in it because it goes right into the beginning of the year, New Year's, which is also a very busy time in a grocery store. So, you know, it just got frustrating over time and I hated missing things and I wanted to spend more time with my family. And that was kind of like the final thing. So, you know, we finally made enough money, had enough sales that I was able to pull away and do this full time. And now, you know, I can work what I want to. I can work now. I can work 8 to 4. I can take the weekends off. We can go on trips. I can work as much as I'd like to. Once again, you know, the work you put in is what you get out. So I put in a lot we're, you know, reaping some of those benefits because I'm very focused. I'm pretty driven on this. But
But you can also stop.
But I can stop whenever I want. I mean,
You can take a week off. You can go on vacation. You can enjoy Christmas.
go to the BLOC Party for 4 or 5 days,
That's right.
and enjoy that time without having to worry about requesting that time off. Or if someone else is on a vacation, then I just can't go. Or, the sort of culture in management of like, you can never call off. You have to be here. Even if you're sick, you're coming into work. And that's just can be a toxic culture over time. And you mentioned it, where if you enjoy retail, there's nothing wrong with working in that. And I don't say I hated it. I just think I hated the process over time. But if you enjoy your job as a grocery manager somewhere, or you work at Walmart and you love it, there's nothing wrong with that. Like Matt and I are saying, we're not saying you have to be an entrepreneur.
Nope.
It's an option. But, if you love what you do, then great.
Hey, listen, I wouldn't want it for my daughters.
I think
and I don't have sons.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't want it for my kids.
Yeah.
Right. And some of that is their own personality. So like, I'm not saying I wouldn't want it for any kids that, like, if I had a kid that had the personality for it, be like, all right, I'm going to groom you to take over the world.
Yeah.
I might. Right. But like, it's like people that go play in the NFL, right? They're like, I don't know that I want that for my kid.
Right.
Like there's lots and lots of reward, but there's lots and lots of risk. And yeah, it's part of it for sure.
There's opportunity. And like you said, like there's a lot of people that we're speaking, I think, to the people that don't like what they do.
That's right.
So like, I think, what's the statistic? 80% of people don't like their job. 8 out of 10.
That's right.
8 out of 10.
Hate it.
You're going to work a third of your life. A third of your life, you're going to sleep, and a third of your life, you're going to have some free time. So for 1/3 of your life, you're going to work and you're going to hate it.
Yeah.
Like, think about that.
That sounds terrible.
Terrible.
Yeah.
So you want to enjoy it. And whether or not that's starting a business based around what you like, and maybe that's barbell weightlifting, maybe that's Ninja Turtles, maybe that's you like talking about Kool-Aid. I have no idea. Right. But there's ways to start business because the internet has just made it so much easier.
That's right.
That you could do something that you love.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you recognize the problem. And, and then we didn't even touch on, like, if you're in a corporation where you have to climb a ladder, there's a lot more involved than just the hard work, right?
Politics.
Like it's just so much of it. And by the way, I don't know what the story is behind this, but like, I remember listening a couple of years ago, Doug McMillon, who's the CEO of Walmart. I think he's still the CEO of Walmart.
He is.
He got interviewed by Tim Ferriss. If you want to go back and listen to the Tim Ferriss podcast, one of the most interesting podcast interviews I've ever heard. It's like hour long, 55 minutes, kind of short for Tim Ferriss, probably because the guy's the CEO of Walmart, didn't have any more time. That guy was the assistant manager of a Walmart in Tulsa in 1991 and was the CEO and president of Sam's in 2005.
That's a jump.
14 years.
That's crazy.
He never asked him. And I went, Ferriss asked him what happened those 14 years. Because that is an unbelievable rise to the top.
Insane.
And so what will happen is you'll work at whatever X giant multi-billion-dollar corporation, and you'll work for 14 years, and you'll go from sporting goods manager to assistant manager to maybe, if you're lucky, a store manager. And you'll be like, how did this other guy go from assistant manager to CEO of the company at the same time? Like, well, because other things were at play, right? And one of the things that you have the control over when you own your own businesses, on some level, you have the ability to like how fast it moves. Now, obviously, lots of things come into play there. What do economics look like? How big is the market? Do crazy things like COVID hit that obviously, like, there are lots of people were through no fault of their own struggle big time. But for the most part, you can decide like, hey, am I keeping the pedal to the metal, or are we hammering the gas on this and we're going to keep growing as fast as we can? Or are you perfectly happy with being a mom and pop owned store that just does a nice living for you and your family? Also, nothing wrong with it. Also, by the way, a little jealous of people who are okay with that, right? Like, God, it's not in my personality to do it. And that's okay too, right? So you have to find what fits your personality and what fits your work ethic and what you can see yourself doing for the next 20, 30, 40 years for your life. And so for me, I looked back at some point and was like, I can't be a public school teacher for the next 30 years. And I can't climb the corporate ladder for the next 30 years. And I think you saw the same thing in the corporate ladder and said, but you know what? I can build my own business. And I certainly had no delusions of grandeur of what Barbell Logic has become and what I think it will continue to grow to. I mean, now I do. Now I guess I have a vision for where I'd like to see it go. But boy, I didn't 5 years ago. I just was hoping to build something nice and, kind of meet a problem of connecting people who didn't have access to expert strength coaches, because of how many people live in the middle of nowhere that don't have access to expert strength coaches. And you saw like, hey, there's very, very few fractional plates out there. And the few that are out there are made in China or exported in, which, by the way, I think we mentioned this last time you were there. Like, talk about COVID. How good is it that you were manufacturing an American-made exercise, like fitness product, strength training product in the United States, when all of a sudden everyone else has not supply chain issues, supply chain stops. And it didn't for you.
That's right. One of the biggest advantages we had was made in the USA. It was actually one of the reasons I was able to quit my job during COVID, where, it was a slow, February, March started to kind of hit a little bit. And then obviously all the gyms got shut down. People wanted to build a home gym. And the influx of people to buy weightlifting equipment was the biggest it's ever been.
Sure.
And, people were buying my 8-plate sets, which is 5 pounds in total weight, as a 5-pound plate. They couldn't find 5-pound plates.
Right.
So none of my American manufacturers shut down. And in fact, we added new products where obviously I built a business on fractional plates, which already sounds crazy. Like, how could there be enough people for that?
Yeah.
That's the niche portion of it. But then we added, because we saw the need, 2.5s, 5s, and 10s.
Yeah.
And we were able to sell those because there was a need. And we laser cut, steel, powder coated, same thing. And we were able to hit that up because I was able to continue to get supply when you couldn't get anything from China. Most of that cast iron stuff, bumper plates, just couldn't get it. And, that was able to help me grow, hire people, add new products and things like that. And we were able to, I don't want to say take advantage of a bad situation, but we were able to help people when they wanted to weightlift at their house. And there's not that many companies doing American-made stuff. There's just not.
You were able to meet a need. That's all there is to it. You shouldn't have to feel bad about it or guilty about it. Like, there was a need before COVID hit, and then after COVID hit, there was an even bigger need. And you had put yourself in a position to meet the need and meet it well. Whereas you have these other companies, and it's not knocking any of these companies, American-owned yet foreign-made companies that have decided to go the faster, cheaper route. All of the sudden, they can't get anything into the country from China because everything's closed. And so you had set yourself up. You probably, over the past 5 years, could have figured out a way to make MicroGainz a little cheaper had you had them made in Asia somewhere.
Probably, yeah. That's true.
But you made the choice to I'm going to do this local. I'm going to do this American. I'm going to do this. And the way it repaid you was when the need was there and the supply chain shut down everywhere else, yours didn't stop. And what a cool story that you made a decision that, again, we're not making a moral judgment at all on people who have done it otherwise. It was clear that you made a decision about your values and what was important to you. I know since the very beginning, I'm talking to you way before COVID ever hit. You were proud that MicroGainz were made in the United States, and not just in the United States, but right down the road from you. It's that's really cool, right?
10 minutes. Yeah. Pennsylvania.
And then that really repaid itself. Those values paid back dividends when COVID hit. And so I think it's important. We come back to our values as well all the time, core values and who you are and your culture are, for big, giant corporate America, are often these posters they hang on the wall that nobody really cares about or talks about, or you could stop anybody at any of those big chain stores and be like, hey, what are the core values for the store? And most employees probably have no concept of what they actually are. But when you actually live by those things and they actually drive the decisions that you make, then when you have to make hard decisions like, hey, we can actually cut 20% off the price of MicroGainz if we start making them out of China or Indonesia, but that's not who we are. Then when the day comes, COVID hits or something happens and you're able to go the value's paid. Values paid off.
It did.
And that's not why you did it. You didn't do it so the values would pay off. You did it because they were your values.
Yeah.
It's been pretty cool. So knowing what those are, as well as I think it's important in the beginning as you listen to this, as our listeners listen to this and they're considering starting their own business or they're already started their own business, understanding who you are, what your values are. I'm a big advocate of writing business plans for you, for yourself, not for banks, not to go get loans, not that we didn't even talk about debt. But you've basically bootstrapped this whole thing, right? You've pretty much bootstrapped your entire business. You didn't go out and get a $300,000 loan to make, I don't think.
No, I actually started with, I think, $1,000 of my own money. That was able to buy the paint.
Yeah.
That was able to buy the few plates to begin with.
That's right.
The box, some packaging material. And then I just rolled that over 1,000,000 times.
That's right.
And then we just kept on getting bigger chunks. So we bought more stuff so we could bring the price down.
Because you were able to pay your bills from your day job and then work your night job, which was MicroGainz, and take all the profit from MicroGainz and put it back into MicroGainz.
Right.
Right. So guys, there is a way. And by the way, it's not the only way to get rich in the United States. It's not the only way to build a big business. But man, here's what it does. It's still a massive potential return for a much lower risk. Same thing for us. Bootstrap the whole thing. No debt, right? Start small, take all the profit, put it back in the business. Build it a little bit, take more profit, put it back in the business. Hire some employees, put it back in the bit. That's what you do. That's been really cool to watch the growth there. Dude, what's going on now with MicroGainz? What's the next couple things that you have on the horizon?
So you saw some stuff at the BLOC Party.
I didn't just see some stuff.
Bought some things.
I bought all the cool, basically every new prototype that Mike showed up with. I walked in as he was setting up his booth and I said, before anyone else tries to buy these, I want all of them. I said, you can leave them on the booth all weekend long so that you can show them off. But then right before you leave on the last day, they're going home with me. And he was like, okay. And then all my employees and clients were like, damn it, you bought all the cool stuff. And I was like, yeah, that's what I did.
It was. Andrew Jackson came up and he was like, I'd like to buy those Barbell Logic plates. And I was like, oh, Matt already got all of them too. He's like, what? So what Matt's talking about is we have a laser etcher now. So we laser etch the MicroGainz logos and weights into our Olympic plates and dumbbell plates. And I did like sort of a special thing for the BLOC Party. I actually laser etched the Barbell Logic logo and the name Barbell Logic and then the light bulb logos right into some 2.5 5s and some fractional plates. And they looked really, really cool. So that is something that obviously Matt and I have talked about that we're going to put out here in the near future for any Barbell Logic listener to purchase.
Yeah, I think it'd be great. We're excited to do it.
They look really good too.
Oh, they're awesome. Yeah, here's the hard thing for me is I have to decide if I'm going to use them or if I'm trying to figure out if, as heavy as they are, if I can go to like a wood kind of fabricator framer and see if I can actually get them like almost shadow boxed.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking about shadow because they're the very first ones ever made.
The originals.
So then when MicroGainz is this big multi-million-dollar giant business, I can be like, that's the very first run, the very first place I ever made that said Barbell Logic on it. So, I mean, I already have all of the MicroGainz plates and I use them all the time. And you've seen me, I love using your dumbbell fractionals and you've just updated your dumbbell fractionals as well. Love them. I have regular dumbbells. I have center of mass bells and I have power blocks and they work on all of them. It's freaking awesome. I love that. Like I use them all the time. And I showed video of the power blocks. It clicks right on the power blocks as well, which is fantastic. The power blocks are 10-pound jumps per, they're kind of big jumps. So you go from like 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, I have them up to 90s. And so to be able to make those smaller jumps is outstanding for the dumbbell fractionals as well.
That's good. And I'm sure a lot of listeners are familiar with the dumbbell plates. They had the band that goes around them and they clamp onto the handle of a dumbbell.
Yep.
And we've sold those for over 3 years now. We have multiple sizes of those, half, 1.25, and now a 2.5 pound set. But I also have a new updated, like a 2.0 version that will probably be out by the time this podcast goes out. But Matt actually has the very first set of those. And they were at
Those I'm using.
Yes, they're brand new.
Those can't go in the shadow box. I used them this morning, an hour ago.
Yeah, so the 1.0 version, the one we sell, works great, but we've updated a lot of things, and Matt can say it's definitely a better product. We actually ditched the band, and we have a internal torsion spring, and the plates are actually smaller and actually thinner, crazily enough, because they're able to clamp on the power block, which doesn't give you a lot of room. You couldn't use my bigger plates to clamp onto power blocks, but the new ones, which we'll have in 2 sizes, 1 pound and 1.25 pound, will be coming out. They're really slick, really nice. We actually have a patent on the utility of it.
Very cool.
So we feel really strongly about them, and you're going to really like them when you see them.
Great mechanics. You've also got, what is the contraptions you put in, like the lat pull down to add weight to the stack, to like plate stacks?
Yeah, the gym pin.
Gym pin, there we go.
So we actually worked with a company named Gym Pin. They're out of the UK, and they make a gym pin, which is basically, it's an aluminum body and it has a high strength steel pin that goes inside of your weight stack. You can pick any number and you can add incremental weight. A lot of weight machines go up by 10s or even 15s, right? So you're eventually doing that lat bar pull down. You can't go up by 15 more to do the proper sets and reps that you'd like to do. This way, you can actually put the gym pin in the stack and add a 2.5 pound plate or a micro plate, a 1 pound plate if you want to go up by 1 pound, or a 5 pound plate. Really, really neat item. It kind of helps our mission, which is to help people build strength and break plateaus no matter how you lift, whether you lift with barbells, dumbbells, or weight machines. We've got your back when it comes to breaking plateaus.
Yeah, I love it. I love it because, like you said, there have been some other fractional plates out on the market. Love yours, have always loved yours. They're outstanding. That's still your bread and butter. But now you're being able to add these additional pieces that are also like nobody else is doing this stuff. And so those dumbbell fractionals have been such a big deal for me as I'm old and beat up, and I still do barbells every single workout, but I can't do the volume on the barbells that I've always been able to do. And so I do a lot more dumbbells now, which is why I went ahead and pulled the trigger on the power blocks. And I love it. They don't take up a lot of space, but like, again, those power blocks are big, giant jumps. And I need to make smaller jumps a lot of times on the power blocks. And now I can do that with your fractionals. And man, the new mechanics of the 2.0s are just awesome. So keep a lookout for that. You can always use discount code LOGIC at MicroGainz. It's microgainz.com, right? MicroGainz.com. You can use the discount code LOGIC to save, I don't know what it is. There's always some sort of discount. Do you know what the discount is?
10%.
10% off your order. I'll tell you one of the things I'd like to do is I would like to start to offer an add-on so that when a new client signs up at Barbell Logic, we have opportunity, like you can add on a t-shirt or whatever. I want to be able to add on your fractional plates because it's something that you need from the very beginning, and just do that. And then maybe just either have you just drop ship them for us and like automatically send it to you, or like we can send them as well. But you're so good at shipping. I feel better about you figured out how to ship it and not break anything.
Yeah.
So, I think that'd be a nice add-on product for Barbell Logic. So keep a watch for that in the future. That should be coming out really quickly. Dude, thanks for coming on doing the show again. It's been such a pleasure to watch you grow. I'm excited to continue to have you on and just walk through your journey. And thanks for being able to give back. And there is a ton of value there for our listeners who are trying to start businesses or have already started small businesses for themselves, that we have a lot of things in common about the way we did it. Again, raising our family on the first job that maybe you didn't love while you're building the second job, and just understood like, hey, you just got to pay your dues until you get to that spot that you can actually leave the primary job and still support your family, and the ability to put in the work and the ability to deal with the big swings, the greatest of celebrations and the deepest of tragedies. You've got to be able to handle all of those things. How wonderful is it that we get to have the freedom to do what we love and take time off when we want to take time off and go be with our family and do the important things and not always be hunkered down in the urgent. So thanks for doing the show again, man.
Hey, thank you. And if anybody wants to reach out, you can go to @MicroGainz on Instagram, @MicroGainz on Facebook. You can send me a DM if you want to talk not even about weight plates. You want to talk about entrepreneurship. You want to ask tips. I give you free knowledge all day, how to start your Amazon business, how to get something started, where to go. I've got a wealth of knowledge with that, and I'm totally free to share my ideas with you, and really enjoy being on the podcast, Matt. And Barbell Logic's been great to me. We had such a great time at the BLOC Party, like I was saying.
Awesome.
We really felt like family, and almost like, we're not employees of Barbell Logic. We're just friends of Barbell Logic, but it definitely made us feel welcome. And it's been a great honor, working with your company over the years.
Thanks, man. Definitely feel like family to us. Yeah, Mike has really been able to hack the product business from this starting very small and working up and growing a business that can support his entire family. So if that's something that you're doing, if you're on the product side especially, man, pick his brain. He's always been great to respond back very quickly to everybody that reaches out on Instagram. If you're not following on Instagram, you should. They're always posting cool stuff. I love it because you like posting your prototypes, but I also like that you'll also often post like what the original stuff look like.
Yes.
You get a lot of like the history of like, this is what the very first like prototype looked like. And so I love seeing that stuff. So you can see not just the growth of the business, but the growth of the products themselves over the years. So it's great stuff on your Instagram. So thanks for doing the show. This has been another episode of the Barbell Logic Business Series, Small Business Series, again, sponsored by MicroGainz as well as Dominion Strength. We'll have Blake and Katie on as well on the podcast. We'll talk to them, I believe, next week. And man, thanks for listening. So I hope you get a lot of value out of this. Again, would love to hear your questions. We will probably do a future Q&A. We ought to just set up a future Q&A with Mike and Blake and some of our small business people. We'll just do like a Q&A panel so that if you have questions specifically for small business, like starting your own business and doing that, you can reach out. It's always in the show notes. You can reach out. I believe it's podcast@barbell-logic.com, and we will answer your questions on a future show. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys here in a couple days.